Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend, Jim Stam. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. Just trying to keep this sickness away from me. The wifey's down. The son's starting to do the sniffles. So I'm just going to hide in here as long as possible. And if you want to do a 4-hour podcast with our guest, then I might actually do it.
I mean, some of you that have been watching this show for a really long time will remember that Doug was one of our very first guests on this show way long ago, back when we first started this concept. Douglas Ford was one of the first regular fans we had on, and now he's like spread his wings and flown off to North Shore 9, and he's a regular contributor over there. So, Doug, say hello to everybody, brother. If you're still there.
I see Doug, but he's not moving.
Doug too. He's frozen up.
I thought he was literally just like being super like locked in. But
I thought he was just eating up the praise. That's what I thought. I thought he's just going, oh yeah, the praise is pretty awesome, actually. There's Doug. He's back now. Doug, I just got done praising you and telling everyone how awesome you are. So just take your flowers and then we can start talking.
Thank you, guys. I'm glad to be here. Pirate Ball.
I mean, he's glad to be here the second time anyway. But
yeah.
Regardless, let's talk about a silly subject that kind of took over the internet, huh? Let's talk about this survey. What were they thinking? What about these questions? Where's the motivation for doing this? Can they really not know what people think? I mean, Doug, this was a lot like the angry mobsters of the village walking up to that castle, Frankenstein's monster walking out the gate, holding them all a piece of paper. Are you for or against me? You know,
right.
I mean, what did you think? What were your thoughts?
Well,
take it however direction you want.
Yeah, for the past couple of years, I thought if I bought the Pirates tomorrow, the first thing I would do is fire Ben Cherington. But now I'm sure that I would fire the Pirates PR people. And I don't know if this is them. You wrote about it and said that like this might be trying to convince a stubborn person inside. Like, yes, it's really this bad, and that makes a lot of sense. But if this is driven by the worst PR department in any business, and I mean the Pirates don't get PR right, from announcing, trades, announcing moves, announcing starters, lineups, anything, any kind of PR thing that, you get Travis Williams saying, hey, might be a loss, but it's a good pretzel. I mean, they just can't get a good public message out there. And I mean, you don't know. I mean, is there not anybody there paying attention to, I mean, did they not attend Pirate Fest? There was people chanting, sell the team. I get it's not a lot. I get that probably might not have been the best thing to do, but the mood is not great, fellas. This is probably not the best time to say, how we doing, right? You don't give someone the comment card after you just spilled their entire meal all over them, right? You wait till after they've given you you've given them great service and a great meal, and they've just tipped you $100. Then you're like, hey, would you like to fill out this comment card? I might, no, this is, this is just, it just seems so inane. Like, is anybody over there have any sense of what's going on? And it's getting harder and harder to believe that they do,
Well, Jim, when better to bring out a survey than after you've brought back two lefty relievers that you needed really bad and a former all-star?
Yeah.
I'm laughing for the audio people.
And do we have any canned laughter buttons? The first thing I thought about this was because they do these surveys, right? And this isn't new.
No, I get one of these most years, I would say.
Yeah. The questions maybe were a little more pointed or different, I thought. I did think right away, I was like, do they outsource this stuff? Like, is this just stuff that they, teams have already set up and they do them every year, and somebody runs that for them and comes up with the questionnaire? And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, no, I doubt it. I think this is actually coming from them. How could they not know what the responses to that would be? Honestly, I've worked. Look. I spent a long time in an organization, not sports related, but a truly dysfunctional organization, and they would put stuff out like this, and I would absolutely hammer them. And I think you should take the time to fill it out and do that and tell people your thoughts. But then I also thought every time that I filled one of those out, I said, it's not going to matter. It's just not going to change anything. And I hate to have that attitude, but I do think when you're in an organization or a company or a corporation, and it's just truly not run all that well, that I just don't expect any kind of change to come from it. It's sad that that's kind of my reality, but that was my only thought. I'm like, okay, I'll fill it out. Nothing's going to change.
I mean, as usual, I thought about it a little deeper, but I thought about it more from a marketing perspective. I know I do surveys like these, and I know that I engineer them in order to get results that will either support my claim that I went into it with or completely dash somebody else's that I want to make a point to. And that's kind of how I took this. Those questions were a lot more pointed. What that felt like to me and smelled like to me was some executives had to stand there and take it on the chin from fans at Pirates Fest. And then they went back and said, like, hey, Bob, people are not happy, because he's always talking to a curated group. If you think about it, he only meets with season ticket holders and selected journalists, right? And the season ticket holders that he meets with, let's just be honest, most season ticket holders are nicer to the team. They get invited to these exclusive events. They get to meet players. They get signatures. You're in an event like that and you run into Bob Nutting. You're probably not a person wearing a sell the team Bob shirt. You're probably not a person that's going to get up in his face. You might politely ask him why he doesn't want to spend more money. You're not pushing him like for a second or third take or bite at the apple. That's the kind of people, the fans he talks to. This smelled a lot to me like somebody wanting to make sure he saw that his assumptions were not what the mass amount of people thought. They also sent this out to more people than they usually do. It usually goes out to season ticket holders or people that have bought like multiple tickets or ticket packages. This time it went out to, I think, everybody on the MLB.com Pirates ticket list. So if you basically bought tickets from the team at some point, you got a survey, I think. There's a lot more. It smelled a lot like a point being made to me.
Well, it's one of those things too where I wonder if this is an easier way to get a point across to Bob than standing there and trying to tell him this, or sitting down in a room. Is he even approachable in that manner? Can you even do that? You almost have to hand him data and just walk away and hope something good comes out of it. I don't know.
Let's take a quick break and we'll feed commercialism while we come back and worry about why Bob doesn't try to get more so that he can spend more money.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Gary, Jim, and our old friend Douglas Ford with us talking Buccos. We started out talking about this survey a little bit. I think we probably have a little bit more to say on that. If you guys want to keep moving along a little bit.
Doug, Are you there? Because I keep seeing you. Sometimes you're locked in.
Sure.
Sometimes you're locked up. Anything to add?
Well,
Let's talk about the social media reaction.
I mean, again, yeah. Well, social media is a dangerous, way to measure things, right? It's a lot of times it seems like it's the same 7 guys with the same complaint.
True.
My biggest concern is do they not know, right? Does Bob not know? Does anybody in that building not know that the fan base is dissatisfied with what's going on? And I think it's been exacerbated by the success of Paul Skeens. We all recognize that we have something special now, something we haven't had. I mean, he's better than any pitcher that we've had in the past. I mean, maybe ever, right? And
right.
He didn't have to ramp up. He didn't have to struggle. I mean, he just came out, stepped off Mount Olympus, and here he is. And you would just expect that they would go get a couple proven players. And so I think the frustration is high because it doesn't seem like the Pirates recognize what we all see, that you have to change business as usual when something like this happens. When I give him credit for picking Paul Skeens. A lot of people are saying, oh, anybody would have done that. That's not true. A lot of people wanted Dylan Cruz. A lot of people did. So that was a good pick. He made the right pick, but take advantage of it, right? Don't put a team that might be able to win 84 games if everything goes okay. Let's try to win the division for the first time ever. I think that feeds into the frustration. And then you said they're sending this out to more people than they normally do. And again, what I find the most frustrating is that they don't know the answers, that they don't know how, if it's just Bob or if it's somebody else.
I don't see it that way at all. I really don't see it as they don't know the answers. I'm convinced somebody knows the answers, and they're just trying to find a different way to show that it's not just their opinion. That's all.
I hope you're right. Yeah, I hope you're right.
I like you guys think, oh, there's no way he doesn't know. Look at that kid that took that picture with him with that shirt on. Look at everything that gets said on social media. Look at the people that boo him when they see him so and so place. He doesn't care about that stuff, and he doesn't see it. And 90% of the people he interacts with, again, they see him, they're filled with bluster. They see him and they shake his hand and say hi. You know what I mean?
I won't tell you about the time I met Donald Fear, and the player, union guy. And I'm like, oh man, you're so great. 2 days ago I was cussing him for you're ruining the game, but then I see him and it's like, I'm not a rude person. Hey, nice to meet you. So yeah, I think if I met Bob Nutting tomorrow, I probably wouldn't tell him that. I'm pretty sure you're the devil, So,
Jim, what do you think, man?
No, Gary, I think sometime this week had mentioned about something to the effect of like, there's a difference between like the hardcore fan and the casual fan, right? Like, so I guess you could measure something in that survey about how there's a difference between us 3 sitting around talking about the Pirates, filling out those surveys, and a lot of other people that will. And so maybe they're trying to glean something from that in the sense of like, come on, we sit at games. You look around, you can tell the people that are into it and the people that are just there to have a good experience,
well,
which is totally fine, by the way.
For instance, next time I see my grandma, the first thing my wife's grandma, the first thing she'll say to me is, I'm so glad they brought back that Adam Frazier. I just love him.
Right.
She's a huge Pirates fan. Do you get what I mean?
Right.
Like she don't want to know about all that crap that we got in our heads.
Yeah, there's a clear delineation between those types of fans and us. And I don't know.
You're not listening to this show either. I'm just saying, but
yeah,
Gary, your grandmother's not listening to the show?
I highly doubt it.
Oh, Graham.
She does read some
but
stuff, but that's about it.
but you know what I mean? Like there's a clear delineation there. And I don't know how big it is. We get very caught up in our Twitter world, our social media world about the Pirates. And it seems like there's a lot of upset people. I know the casual fan knows that the reputation of Bob Nutting too. I just don't know how much they're going to sit there and just fires coming out of their fingertips when they get these surveys. It's a shame we'll never see the results of them because that would be fascinating. But yeah, so I don't know. Maybe there's enough people out there that are just happy enough with going to the games and having a good experience. Maybe the Instagrammable moments are enough for some folks.
I mean, I can say, just speaking for me, the things that I do Pirates related, they take too much of my brain power and time for me to be that way about the other sports. So when I watch hockey and football now, I'm just watching what's on the field. I'm not thinking about their salary cap, or I'm not like I'm probably not thinking about the third stringers. I'm certainly not thinking about who they're going to draft next year. You know, I check in and see how the Penguins are doing. I watch the games. I don't know crap about, you know, how long they have on a contract for their left winger. Like I'm not at that place anymore. I'm just watching them as they are. And it really has reminded me of how I used to be about baseball. And I think there's a lot of fans that still are like that. And maybe in many ways, Jim, those are the people that they're hoping they capture in these surveys, where they can come out and have Greg Brown sit in that box and say that very last question was, do you think they're going in the right direction? Very vague. And it comes after a crap ton of real negative, like, go ahead and punch me in the balls questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then comes that softball at the end. And I bet a lot of people, they answer those first two real harshly, and then they get to that one and they're like, well, yeah. But that's and then whether get that booth on opening day and go, well, we surveyed the fans and they see the team's going in the right direction, and that'll be all they take from it. You get what I mean?
Right. Like all these sports are not built off the back of hardcore fans. They're not. They're just not.
Gosh,
like,
no.
You know, the NFL in the ratings has much to do with fantasy football and gambling now than anything. So baseball's not different in that regard. In fact, they're pretty reliant on just the experience in general. So, you know, it's probably not a survey for us if we're being very realistic about everything. That just kind of dawned on me. They know what it's going to be like from every one of us. They're looking at the other 8 out of 10 people that might answer it differently or less harshly.
Right. So let's talk about the other oddity of this survey. It comes out right after 3 pretty mediocre signings. So let's talk about those signings. The first one was Tim Meza. Honestly, needed left-handed pitching. I know I made a joke about it earlier. Needed left-handed pitching. He's been a good pitcher in this league. Really has a killer sinker when he's right. Last year he was not right in Toronto. They sent him to the Yankees and, you know, not too bad, actually. Kind of rebounded with the Yankees and had a decent second half of the season. I think this one's a good shot at a nice lefty in the bullpen. I'm kind of excited about it. What were your thoughts, Doug?
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's one area I give Ben Cherington the benefit of the doubt is he has been able to find relievers and spin some gold out of them, you know? So again, we didn't sign this guy for $10 million. It's a cheap contract. He got better at Yankee Stadium, which is a very hard place to pitch. Relievers bounce back all the time. We all believe that because we want David Bednar to bounce back. So yeah, you signed a lefty who's been a pretty effective pitcher. I have a lot of faith in the new assistant pitching coach there, Brett Strom. I think he has had positive, tangible impacts on guys.
For sure.
So I have no issue at all with that signing. It's the kind of signing teams make all the time. It's the kind of signings the Pirates make all the time. And you don't get through a baseball season using 7 relievers anymore. Right.
Not at all.
You go through 15 to 20 of them. So, he might be good for 2 months and then it's somebody else's turn. So yeah, that's a fine signing. Not a single complaint. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Jimbo, what'd you think, brother?
Well, look, I mean, it's not really about who the Pirates are signing, right? It's right now about who they're not, or who they haven't, or who they won't. I think to the fans, right? Like they're looking for something better. And then if this stuff was sprinkled in, then it's more digestible. I don't have a problem. Like things really fell apart for him last year. This is a very, very little committed to it financially.
1.15 million is nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. Same with Baraki. I mean, like,
he's next, segue boy.
Yeah. But that's the one where I was like, yes, no brainer. Like, if you can get back 80% of what Baraki was before all his issues last year physically, who wouldn't take that? I mean, it could be an absolute steal.
Like Tristan here says, relievers are notorious for being up and down from year to year, and at that price, you can't go wrong with filling a position of need. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, like, those to me are both kind of no-brainers. Like, they've recently each had success. One was definitely because of health issues with Baraki. So, yeah, a couple lefties that have been good in the last 2 years.
I'm probably a little more sure about Meza than I am Baraki, if only because Baraki has not had a good track record. He had one half of a great season in Pittsburgh.
Right. He was so good, though. My goodness.
Sure, he was unbelievable. Like, if he did that in the first half of a season, he'd be in the All-Star game, for real.
Absolutely,
that's how good he was. Yeah. So you kind of hope
that's why I said
there.
80%, right? Like, even
you kind of hope
80%.
it's in there, but you got to, you got to see what he does healthy, if he gets healthy again. And so I like that they were able to get him on a minor league deal, if nothing else. Same price as Mazak, so it's not Meza, so it's not like they don't see him as a good option. I could see both of them breaking camp, and they really needed to do that because all they really had was Wentz as a left-handed pitcher in the bullpen. That's good for me. That helps. I think that I'm done shopping for lefties personally, unless you're getting a big name.
Yeah, I think obviously if there's something out there, nothing else comes to fruition. Would I like them to maybe throw a few dollars at somebody that I can absolutely kind of count on a little more? Yes, I'm all for that. But we have
Caleb Ferguson too. We should say.
Yeah, that's
so. And I know they're talking about that starting thing, but he's going to be in the bullpen. I mean, I'm pretty confident he's going to be in the bullpen. So unless he's their 5th starter when they go north, and they use him almost like one of those first 3-4 inning type guys. And
he opens a few games, and you're a starter, But I don't see him pitching into the 7th, not from the 1st into the 7th anyway.
So they've gone in this week. They've gone, or a week and a half. They've gone from having no real lefties outside of Wentz to 3 that could potentially be on this roster on opening day, maybe. So all in all, that's the right moves. Now, Adam Frazier. Love the guy. I'm not, this isn't sour grapes about the trade of him or anything. I didn't care. I knew it was coming. I was ready for it. Didn't bother me really when they did it. I don't think he's really made me feel like they lost much except for what he did initially after being dealt the rest of that year. He really never recaptured that. I guess last year in Baltimore 2 years ago, he was clutch. He was basically their Josh Palacios, but that's about it, right? The average has consistently gone downhill. He's never been a spectacular fielder, never. Even when he was a good second baseman, he lacked range. Doesn't have the arm for the outfield. Sounds like the Pirates only plan to use him in the infield. I got to be honest, man. try as I might, aside from like the small nugget of, okay, they only have one left-handed infielder named Horwitz, I can't think of a damn reason to make this signing, even at the paltry sum they've paid him. Jim, you start.
He's been bad. He's been bad for a couple years, and bad maybe putting it gently. I just, a middle infielder, he'll be 34 next year. Hasn't been a good ball player for two and a half seasons. All the things are there that's just suggesting this is, a last gasp for him. Even if he had turned into one of these guys that everything else fell off the planet, but he was hitting some home runs, you know what I mean? Like I could maybe talk myself into that, but it's just a guy that looks like he's to me, it almost surprised me he got a major league deal out of it. Like that's how bad he's been. So, Doug, where are you at? I can't imagine you're doing cartwheels right now either.
No, it just doesn't make sense. I don't think there's going to be any lineup this year that I want to see Adam Frazier over Nick York, Billy Cook, Jared Triolo, Nick Gonzalez. You know what I'm saying? There's just no. And I mean, I know we're going to talk about it a little later, but there's just nowhere where Harry wrote about possibly. If Hayes can't play and Triolo's the full-time third baseman, then he's a backup second baseman. But I'd still, I'd rather see Cook. I'd rather see York in particular. But I'd rather see
Emmanuel Valdez,
a first baseman or an outfielder.
What about Emmanuel Valdez?
I mean, it's just, or Piguero, or I mean, there's a slew of people you'd want to see. So I don't see any spot for him on the roster that I don't think would be taking away from somebody else. I liked Adam Frazier when he was here.
Doug did what you never do, Jim, and read my column, so he knows my other conspiracy theory of it's Brian Hayes' back is not right, and they think Triolo is not going to be able to be the utility, so they're kind of just preparing for it. It makes a lot more sense if that's the case. Not that I would want Frazier to be my starter one way or the other. Right. I mean, don't report this back to your North Shore 9 friends, but I'd rather see G1 Bay. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm hurting. I'm hurting.
Absolutely, I would.
I'm hurting for this Adam Frazier signing because I just don't get it.
Right. There's nothing to like. You can go as deep as you want to in the numbers with Adam Frazier as you want. Maybe if you're looking at trying to find splits, anything, it's just not there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, first of all, total speculation from me on the Hayes thing. It's the only thing I could wrap my brain around, which would be.
Could there be a trade in the works that's going to, impact the infield depth, right? I mean, are they going to move? I don't know. You could move Triolo, move Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Is maybe someone going to get moved, but it still doesn't make much sense.
I don't know how you could move Isaiah Kiner-Falefa because while we think he's deficient as the shortstop, he's their only shortstop. Like they have Piguero. Okay, I guess you can play the Nick Gonzalez is able to play their game if you want to. I think Jared Triolo could, but I think Jared Triolo is going to have to play third base a lot, one way or another. So, yeah, I don't know what the plan is there. I really don't. I'm confused by it. Valdez being there, and I thought that was a guy they were really going to give a shot to. Nick York can play second base. I mean, that's a guy you need to consider trying to find a place to get in the lineup. In fact, I think we've kind of all said this doesn't make any sense. We should just move on.
Well, the only thing I was going to add to, and it's going to be it's stuff we're going to talk about with younger players, right? Like, I'd rather just see a younger guy get those at bats and see what he can do with them. Like I did, I don't need 120 at bats from Adam Frazier. I don't need to see it. I don't think anything's going to come of it. You've got guys that are trying to at least get their footing in the major leagues or get a shot. Those are bats I want to go to other guys.
This isn't even like a reach back to the glory days and smile while you're jerking off type move. This is, you know what I mean? This is like this was just a couple years ago. The team lost 100 games. Most of the years he was here. I don't need to see that. I don't need to see reminders of that. That would be like if they re-signed Connor Joe right now. I would be like, what are you doing? Like, you just got rid of him.
I don't have a lot of nostalgia for 2020 and 2021.
No.
Right?
So this one didn't make any sense to me. And it also really kind of got me thinking, Jim, because I think part of the reason that I started getting upset is I started naming off all those names that could play second base. And I thought to myself, we've been wanting them to upgrade, and I still do. I still want them to get a right fielder. So put your pitchforks away. How do you draw the line there? There's a lot of guys I really want to see play this year. I really want to see Billy Cook and Nick York get a shot. I really think there's something there with Valdez, at least as far as power goes. And that's a lefty stick, play the infield or the outfield. Jack Sawinski is not dead. Henry Davis is not dead. Andy Rodriguez is not dead. There's a lot of kids like that. We're going to need to see more of Jared Triolo. What about Piguero? Are we cutting Bay or what? Like, you gotta start making room for some of these kids. At the same time, you want to fortify the roster. How do you walk this line? It's confusing, Jim. I mean, I sit there and I look at, like, Nick York is a great example. I think they have to get his bat in the lineup. I really do. I think he's going to add a dimension that they haven't had in a long time. He's a slump killer. He's the one guy in your lineup that is not going to just go into deep, dark valleys of hitting, I think. Because of his approach and everything. I would love to have that, like, in the 6 and 7 hole, just to keep this lineup from dying on me. Right? So I don't want to upgrade past him, but we will if we get another right fielder. You know what I mean? How do you get him back in this lineup? You can't have him sitting on the bench.
Well, and the thing about it is, spring training's coming up. It's such a small window to get some things sorted out. You want to add more to that with Adam Frazier. I mean, like, those to me, like, just whatever it is you're trying to sort out, you only have a short time to do it before the games start to count. And I just don't understand muddling that up any more than it already is.
And 13 of the 26 projected players on the 26 man don't have any options. I mean, so you're going to have to make some decisions. And then you're running out of, like, Liover Peguero. This is his last one. Let's say that you allow Nick Gonzalez to get beat out. I know we've all handed him second base, but he had a barely over 600 OPS last year. If you really want to pretend that this team has to improve on day frickin' one, you trot out a guy that had a 600 OPS on opening day. That's probably not the best way to go about it, right? They should really upgrade that, right? They're not. So you've got Nick Gonzalez, Nick York, Cook, Bay, Valdez, Adam Frazier, Jared Triolo.
It's a lot of. Yeah. I mean, and then let's break it down. How many spring training games are you playing? And then your split squad games, whatever. Like, this stuff can't just be sorted out in April and May. When you're quote unquote, whatever it is your definition of is time to compete, you can't spend 60 games to do it, to figure all that out. So I just, why, and it is the one position on the field when we're talking about, like, short, second, that there's enough names in on the list already that why can't we just focus on figuring that out? My goodness.
Even right field, Jack Sawinski is another one that I get why people, I think he's dead. He was really bad last year. Man, a team like this that struggles to get what they have to have, which is that power. I don't know how you flush a guy that almost hit 30 for you just 2 years ago. I mean, to me, it's not so much like that I want them to give Jack a shot. It's that I know they're not going to pay for anyone that's going to do what I've already seen him do. I want to see him get a shot. Like, I think they need to give him a shot. Like, I think it's that important that they get that power out of him. I don't care if he does nothing else.
Would you? Is there a world where you can get on board with just starting Jack against righties already and just making sure that he can get off to the best possible start that he can? Are you guys willing to concede the full everyday player route just to see if he can make sure that he can get off on the right foot?
If they hadn't fired Andy Haynes, I'd say yes.
Doug?
I've sort of thought that that's their plan, right? That they're going to platoon right field. So why not? Why not? The Pirates, we're not good enough to, like I said, give a bunch of games away in April and September. The Pirates need everything to go right. So again, with your limited talent, your limited options, let's put them in the best possible, position to succeed. So, I mean, right. We've seen Suwinski, with some great raw power, and we've seen him struggle, and he certainly struggles, against left-hand pitching. So why not run out one of those other guys? I mean, you sort of, like I said, we need to figure out who they are and what they can do. So yeah, if you're, and we can't, Gary's absolutely right. We just can't throw Suwinski out. The guy could hit 30 home runs. I mean, and again, if he's part of a platoon and gives you 18, right, and the other guy can give you 10, right, that's some good power. And as Gary said, we're not going out to acquire that. So we've got to find it, and this team is desperate for power.
Well, as a team, how would I sell that to my fans, Jim, that are hungry like baby birds for me to do anything, right? And they've been screaming from the mountaintops all off season, we need a right fielder. I'm sitting here telling you they have to give Jack a chance, right? And no matter who they bring in, it isn't going to be somebody that can hit 25 home runs. Never was going to be that. So where's that power coming from, right? It ain't coming from Jack if you don't have him in the lineup. And I even have news for the people that just want to straight platoon him. Jack is a guy that sits on the bench for 3 days while you run into a string of lefties, and he turns into a pumpkin. Jack needs to face pitching, and he needs to strike out. Unfortunately, he needs to go through everything that he does in order to be the player he was 2 years ago, which you would take happily and insert right in the middle of this lineup and shut your mouth about this time. Because instead of thinking he's going to turn into Brian Giles, you can be happy with Rob Deere.
Yeah, Rob Deere, anybody under 40 doesn't know that reference, but it's kind of perfect.
Oh, well, sorry. Rob Deere is just a dude that cranked a ton of home runs and did nothing else. That's all.
Rob Deere just grew up in the wrong decade because Rob Deere...
he'd have been an all-star, yeah.
Yeah, Rob Deere right now, everybody...
No.
Everybody would be. You think about, oh man, there's a lot of guys. You could make a list, right?
Schwarber, he's Schwarber.
Yeah, guys that just did nothing but hit bombs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the tricky part about this, guys. Is we've heard them talk about. Well, we just got to figure out the last 2 months of the season, right? Like. Why isn't the last 2 months? Why have we fallen off the last 2 months of the season? Well, I don't think you need to spend the first 2 months of the season trying to figure out a bunch of stuff either.
Dave Kigman, there's a Pittsburgh connection to a guy like that, right? Thank you, Darth something.
Yeah,
I love it. Jack Clark, somebody else brought up. That's another good one. Yeah, a lot of home runs, doesn't do too much else. They may need to see that, Jim. I guess what I'm saying is I understand the urgency to build around Paul Skeens. I understand the urgency to go out and get free agents to do it. I just don't know if maybe we're going to miss out on actually getting what we need that's here already. Like tearing up the minor leagues or whatever, and it really should be up here. I just don't know how you walk that line. We haven't been here very often if you think about it. Even when this team got good in like 2012 and 2013, this stuff kind of sorted itself out. The players that came up just latched on. They fell into their natural spots. They moved Neil Walker wherever the hell he needed to move him. And everything else kind of just came together, right? That's not how this one's coming together.
No, not at all. Yeah. Again, I'm convinced that it's Cherington's plan. I mean, right. I think he thinks his right fielder or right fielders is on the roster now. I think he has faith possibly in Sawinski, and then, York and Cook, maybe Palacios can, get some of that clutch magic, or I don't know exactly. And I still think Andy Rodriguez could end up there. I've been told by a lot of smart people that that's wrong, that they really see him as a catcher and, et cetera, et cetera. But, I think that Cherington thinks it's here already, because he would have at least, I would think, gone out and got the Rowdy Tellez version of a right fielder, right? He wasn't going to get it, So I think it's an in-house answer, and to Jim's point, it's going to be hard to sort that stuff out with as many guys as you want to cycle through with, limited at bats and, spring training. And like you said, we 10 games losing streak in July and weak finishes, but, we're terrible. We've been really bad the past couple Mays as well. And we have those hot starts, but they fade quickly to just an awful, awful May. It'd be nice. It'd be nice.
Does Randall Grichuk make you guys more comfortable if they were to sign him? Because if you're only talking signings, it's really kind of him. Like that's really about it. There's not.
I think it's going to be Verdugo, but
you're talking a very, very short list and it's on one hand of guys that you could potentially even bring in at this point.
I think it's probably Verdugo. I think that's what ultimately they'll do. I do wonder why you would do that, though. When your next two in line, technically right now, are Jack Sawinski and Josh Palacios. Like you would want the right-hander, right? So that he does play the other side of that platoon. I think that let's take a quick break and come back and talk a little bit about just the pieces that aren't fitting right now and how they make them fit. Because I'm so confused looking at this roster, worse than I have been in probably 4 years, honestly.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Yes, I'm still confused.
No. I just read the last comment on here. Brian, I feel you a little bit, buddy. I feel you a little bit.
I do too. He said it's depressing. Yeah, it is depressing. It's mostly depressing because I guess like when I can make sense of the moves, at least when I can kind of paint the bright side of it or the upside or the pie in the sky angle on why they've done something, I can usually be pretty okay with it. Whenever I can't do that, that's when I get pretty upset. That's when I start to like really wonder what exactly I'm looking at, Jim. Like, I think Brian Reynolds has kind of put to rest any pretend I'm going to first base stuff. So left field is solidified. O'Neal Cruz is going to be the center fielder. That's solidified. Right field, we know, is a question mark. There's all kinds of options that could play it already internally, some of which I really think I'd like to see get a shot at it. Nick York, Billy Cook, Jack Sawinski, to name a few. I'd really like to get shots at out there in right field. First base, you got Horwitz. I have no idea what they're doing as the backup first baseman right now. I guess you could say Endy. It's not going to be Reynolds. He made it sound like, no, that's something I'm just toying around with. So I don't know who else is the first base. Billy Cook, maybe? He kind of did that a little bit. Nick York could probably do it. So there's those. Second base, we named 50 million people that could do it before. Shortstop, they got IKF, who's here on a 1-year deal. And what, Peguero? Or O'Neal Cruz goes back there in a pinch? Alika Williams? No, I'm talking people that are capable of playing the position now, not people that hit. Jared Triolo, I think, can play it, but Nick Gonzalez, they sure have tried. So I really think about who's going to play shortstop if something happens to IKF. Or like if he doesn't work out or he hits like he always has.
Well, this goes back to like when we talk about maybe signing up, whether it's a lefty reliever that you can count on a little bit more or a right fielder that you can count on a little bit more, because like we haven't even discussed barely with anything about like, if you have any injuries, like, anything that doesn't go just so, you haven't really given yourself any type of like cushion for that. And like, we already saw it last year with even the bullpen. Like they couldn't stay healthy. And then when they got back, it was like, well, they need time to get healthy, right? Like, so, man, you can waste a lot of games just trying to get the best options you have out there. God forbid, what would they do right now if IKF got hurt?
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe they would do what Charles suggests here and put Peguero at shortstop. IKF is average. He is, right?
He is.
We keep talking about like, but IKF, devil's advocate here, $7.5 million, quality major league veteran, vetted, tested. The glove's real. He can play. He's won Gold Glove. He hit pretty well last year. He's at least a professional at bat. These are what we claim to want at certain positions, right? So now he's not holding anybody back at shortstop. That's the problem.
Yeah.
If it was second base, you'd be like, why'd you do that? But like,
it does seem an odd approach to a team that's going to be building itself around starting pitching, right? To not have solid defensive players. I guess, right. I guess they would roll out Alika Williams, and he is a solid defensive player. So, it's scary. What if Horwitz gets injured? What if Brian Reynolds? I mean, the options. If any of these, solid players that we're expecting things from get hurt, are not really promising, right?
Well, let's be fair. In this market, and about 20 others. Right. If you lose an O'Neal Cruz and a Brian Reynolds and a Paulsky, you're screwed anyway. So let's not pretend. Let's not pretend that that's the issue. But what have they done
tried their hand at it, but you got to be the Braves to absorb it.
And even that is kind of like, okay, you guys got to get over the hump, right? Third base is a big question mark because of Brian Hayes. There's a veteran position that's actually filled, but we don't know what he's going to do.
Right.
I don't know if he's going to hit. I don't know if his legs are going to work. I don't know if his back is killing him. I don't know what's going on there. And then Jared Triolo is the obvious backup. And while he came on last year, he's got a ways to go before he's an above average major league hitter. So I guess what I'm saying is we want them to do all this stuff and we focus on right field, but they don't have a whole lot of solid answers anywhere. Are we just getting Paul Skeens excited and blowing ourselves up too fast? We're not ready. This team needs another year of development. Be real with yourself. I know what you feel about Paul Skeens, and I know you feel every time that you don't have a World Series team out there, you're wasting your time. But this team's never in the National League with the Dodgers and Mets and Braves and whoever else going to field something that feels like a World Series team. It's going to field something that might look like a playoff contender. That's the best you're going to get. And then you hope the Dodgers have a rash of injuries or something terrible happens to them, or they just all go south at the same time and you win. But like, Jim, that's where I'm sitting right now. I'm looking at this team and I just keep thinking to myself, they're not one signing away from being where I want them to be. And it almost don't matter who I name.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is right now that you could probably come up with a list of 10 questions.
And they just did that and we made fun of them. So
question marks about like, and if you tried to rank them, like the 10 biggest question marks on this team, which maybe that'll be an exercise for me or us, Gary.
Yeah, I can see it.
Man, that's going to be a tough task because you can rattle it off, and if you're trying to rank them, they're all pretty darn important. So the signing, the one sign. Look, Randall Grichuk isn't going to make anybody sleep better at night, but they need a lot of things to go right, and they're going to need the Henry Davises of the world and the Jack Sawinskis of the world and O'Neal Cruz to take another step forward, and Ke'Bryan Hayes not to show up with a back that looks like a crinkle fry. There's a lot of stuff that's going to have to go right.
So Bruce Nesbitt here says Charrington is going to go with players he drafted and traded for to prove he knows what he's doing. I sure hope so, Bruce. He's been here 5 years. What choice do you think he might have in that? Everyone here is here because of him at this point. Either deciding to keep
his
them
players.
Of course he is. I mean, that's like saying Bob Nutting's gonna try to stick with black and gold and see if the fans like it. Of course. I mean, it's the Pirates. That's the Killers.
And any other players he had are going to be players he acquired, drafted, or traded for. I mean,
and if he signs players, they'll be players he chose to sign.
They're his players. So,
I think
we have to hope that
at some point you just get to the point where it doesn't matter what these people do. I get it. It's part of your personality now that everything they do is dumb. We're trying to just have a conversation about a baseball team. If I'm just looking at it from 50,000 feet, I don't have all that history. I'm just looking at it, trying to make sense of what they've done.
We need Ben Charrington to get the last laugh, right? We need him to see. I told you. Look at Nick York. He's hitting 300. That's what we need to happen.
Yeah, you want him to be the smartest guy in the room at the end of the day, don't you?
Yeah.
I think too, like this spring training is going to be fascinating. I really think it is. Is like they're again back to those question marks. This is going to be one of those spring trainings where, boy, you don't want to put a lot of stock in what you're seeing, but you might have to because you're looking for guys that are taking steps forward and solidifying things.
Yeah, to me, like if you made that decision with like Jared Jones last year, like to just blow away all convention and let him start right out of spring training. That's not something the Pirates have done. Not traditionally anyway. That was a departure. It was different. It was refreshing. Like to see more things like that. Paul Skeens, they just blew Super 2 out of the window. They didn't even care.
Right.
Bring them up.
Yeah, May 10th.
Those sorts of things show me, okay, you have a little urgency. I get it. When I see something like what they're doing at second base, that tells me you don't believe in anyone. You're just like throwing a quilt together. Like, I mean, hoping that maybe it stops something and somebody shakes out and turns into something. You don't even have any of these guys develop to the point where you can trade them effectively. Like, you need to let like Nick Gonzalez turn into a desirable player before you try to trade him. You got to let Jared Triolo do more than just win a Gold Glove as a utility man. You've got to let him show the bat works and back it up by sticking someplace for a little bit and turn him into a Bryce Terang type that you would want to deal for. That's part of development too. It doesn't have to be all players you keep. You got to develop guys that are worth trading. That's why we talk about all these trades. All anybody wants to move is Bubba Chandler because it's the only player that everyone universally thinks is going to be good. There should be more by now. That you want to talk about year 5. Year 5, you should have some stunted growth people or people that got passed over by other prospects that are now expendable. G1 Bay should be a commodity you should be able to trade if you were smart about how you deployed and developed him. They haven't.
Right. The only infielder that they could trade now would be Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, right? He'd be the only one that somebody would say, all right, well, we know what he can do. We can work with that. Everything else is a big question mark. You wouldn't be able to get any value for. Yeah, right. And Nick Gonzalez is not, a finished product yet. And we've anointed him at second base. You're right. I mean, when this rebuild started, we didn't have an answer at second base or right field, and we still don't have an answer at second base or right field.
And now we've got like 10 second basemen on our 40 man.
Well, and
10 middle infielders that can't play shortstop, right?
And 4 catchers.
Half our 40 man is catchers and second baseman. Douglas Smith here said about the new hitting coach. How hard has he been working in the offseason? I'm sure he's working very hard. What I would love to know is, like, how are you doing this in the offseason and then getting to spring training, and how does all that get deployed? Because I just find that to be not the greatest setup in the world, right? Like, how do you get all that funneled in the right direction in this quick a time? And they're not even day to day yet, so that to me is another huge question, is how does all that unfold when you bring a new guy in like that?
I mean, I know that he's met with most of the expected players, I had a couple.
But until you get in the kitchen, though, right?
But I had a couple tell me that at Pirates Fest, and he has worked with some of them already. And then some of them do periodically come up here for cage work too. So it's not like they don't ever do anything. Right. And a lot of them live in Bradenton, so I mean they're working around the clock on like Henry does. So like they're working on things all the time down there. But I don't know, man. Like I don't know how you onboard things like that. I also think we're probably smart guy fanning this a little bit with the hitting instructor thing. I think it is a lot more simplified than we think it is. I don't think that they're trying to tweak people's swings. They're not trying to revolutionize somebody's swing for the most part. You got into the majors, you kind of know what you're doing with your bat. They're probably working on the plane a little bit. They're working on small adjustments, recognizing certain spins, things like that. That stuff, I think, just comes from hitting under their watchful eye over time. I don't think there's anything you could do in an off season on that. Like we watched Connor Griffin completely change his swing, right? We've also seen guys like Brian Hayes try to do that, and it's a complete disaster when they come back, right? So right. I don't know. Henry's a guy that I kind of hope has just put his feet up and ate some donuts and like chilled out this off season, comes back, remembers he likes to hit. and Jack, I kind of hope Jack's just gotten out of his head, and I hope having a new voice in his ear helps him to have it all click, But I don't know. I don't know what one hitting instructor can do in an off season. I doubt much.
Yeah, it's just an interesting aspect of it all. I agree with you, Gary. You're not going in there on day one and saying like, Jack, it's time to whatever you've been learning, buddy. It's time to, strip it. We're stripping you back down to the studs.
You're now going to bat right-handed, right?
Right. I mean, so yeah. Even that is so. A lot of this is dependent on. And first of all, let me say this too. Like the talent and the ability has to be there. Like a coach is not just. He's not making something out of nothing. So again, it is about tweaking things and being there and helping what's already there. And so I think like people expect like magic to happen with coaching. Now, you probably need to be good first, then the coaching helps you.
Like David Rosenberg here says, how many third-year players ever recover from 182? I dispute third-year player only because of how many at-bats he's actually had. I don't know that I would even try to answer that question. My question back would be, so what are you saying? Cut him? No. And if your answer is you're not going to cut him, well, what do you have to do? You got to play him, right? He's a 1-1, and like you're not just going to flush him. Like this is a pure college hitter. I mean, he will come along at this league. You can give him time, and if not, he'll Joey Bart it and go somewhere else, and find his legs in year 4 or 5 of his career somewhere else. I mean, I'd rather try to keep that lightning here if I think it's there. They have not done a good job with him on the way up. They haven't, and it's not all their fault. It's not all his. Somebody has messed up though, because Henry Davis's trip here was awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny as I read that comment, I actually thought he was talking about Jack.
He might have been same difference.
But ironically,
they're not third-year players, right?
It doesn't matter. The answer is probably still the same. I would answer that too, David, by saying, baseball's a funny game.
Yeah. And like David followed up here. He said, you can't count on him as option one. That's what this whole conversation has been about. How do you decide that you can't count on him as option one? Besides like just saying, oh, he's not good enough, because at some point you're going to want to see if he is, and there's no other way to do that than to have him get major league at bats. That's that line we're trying to understand tonight. And I think what, at least I feel we can come out of it with is they almost don't have anybody that's really pulling on the yin side of the yang, man. Like they have a lot of things spinning around, but nothing's threatening getting to the middle and winning. That's the problem. They've got too many options and they're too similar. I don't know how they pick and choose who gets a shot.
Well, yeah. And I do think you have to make a distinction between I'm trying to think of somebody that's not Adam Frazier, just like the G1 Bays of the world and the Jack Sawinskis and the Henry Davises of the world. Like one was a 1-1 in Henry. And okay, you can say, well, he should have never been. Okay, well, he still would have been a top 5 pick. So let's just talk about it like that. You're not going to throw him in the dumpster. And Jack a year ago hit 25 home runs, almost had an 800 OPS. Was it perfect? No, he strikes out and he was streaky, but nobody's going to throw him in the dumpster either. So I just think that like, man, I think we can differentiate between guys that maybe you should stick with a little bit longer and guys that you can say, okay, well, maybe I have seen enough. I think there's a distinction, or there should be.
Man,
Yeah, I agree. You can't give up on these guys. You can't. And I would say this about other teams that had these guys, right? Not just the Pirates, who are desperate to to generate some power, to get some offense from places that they haven't been getting offense. I don't think Henry Davis has 500 at bats yet. Now the ones he's had have looked awful. I'm not disputing that. It sort of looks like he doesn't have a position, and doesn't look like he can hit really well. He can't hit the fastball, that sort of thing. But you cannot give up on, and yeah, like I said, I don't care that he's won one. You can't give up on a guy that you had this high of hopes for without finding out for sure that you can't get it out of him here. And it's the same thing. I mean, Jack Sawinski, it was like 19 home runs his first season and 26 or 20, it's a game based on power now. I mean, I don't know that it necessarily should be, but that's how everybody's playing it. And if you're going to play it that way, if you're not going to try to play small ball, then you've got to find out if you can get something out of Jack Sawinski. Maybe it's only platoon, or what have you, or maybe he has to play every day, to like I said, so he can get in a good groove. But you cannot just say, we're all done. Let's, okay, we're now going to try just these two guys or something.
Yeah.
If Joey Bart turns around and has another really good year, I think you'll always be able to point to that and say, that's why you don't do it too early. And it can happen. Baseball is not a game where guys have a bad year and they don't rebound from it. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do.
I mean, I'd also say, at the beginning of this decade, the Pirates were out there making trades for hopes of guys just like they've got in loads right now. We were trading for guys like Castillo and Hoy Park, and now we're producing them. That's what we've got, is a roster full of Hoy Parks and Diego Castillos that maybe they'll take off if you give them a chance. Maybe they won't. Maybe they will if we gave them a chance. Some of our fans will be mad if we traded somebody like a Nick Gonzalez. Some of them would probably think they were getting a reclamation project if they got him. It's honestly, I think, a difficult situation they've put themselves in. We've watched him do nothing but throw crap at the wall and see what sticks with second base ever since he got here. And you can say that however you want. It's been some drafted, some developed, some were already here, some were traded for, some were taken off waivers. I don't care how they got here. You've got 15 of them now, and that is not sustainable with how modern pitching staffs have to be built with the 40-man roster. They're not going to be able to keep all these players, Jim. There's going to be decisions forced upon us. That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely. They have left themselves very little wiggle room. They just have. And they're banking on certain things. We'll see how it works out.
I was just about to end the show, but then Dougie Fresh here dropped off, so I'm glad he came back so he could say goodbye. Doug, I'm glad you're back just in time to say goodbye.
Man, I apologize. God, I have the
fine.
worst luck with this. I appreciate you guys having me on. It doesn't seem like we've answered. That there's no resolution. And
sometimes it's not about the answer. Sometimes it's about the journey, man.
Yeah, we're not going to find out till for a while. But I'm looking forward to spring training.
Me too, Doug. I'll finish your sentence for you. I totally agree. Spring training is going to be a blast. They're going to have so many awesome people. And I think it's us, not Doug. Doug is fine on North Shore 9. His internet never works when he comes on this show. I feel bad for him, but it is what it is. And I'm going to just let him go mercifully, Jim, and say goodbye to you too, my friend.
Hey, listen, like you said, we don't have the answers. The Pirates don't right now. So spring training this year, I do think, is going to be very, very interesting.
Question 1 on that survey should have been, what the hell should we do at second base? All right, man. I'll talk to y'all later. I'm going to toss it off to my buddy Ben, and Doug says bye too, I promise. He's waving somewhere off in virtual reality.
In the cloud.
Yeah.
Let's go, Bucks!
Yeah, buddy.